Question number 2, we'll start with Andy this time. The question is about housing. Low-income housing has been a challenge in different cities around Washington State. As a city council member, how would you work together with other city council members for low-income housing development in our city? How would you support organizations that offer direct housing assistance? In 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think we need to partner and work better with public and private developers. We need to also partner and increase our funding and partnerships and contracts with local nonprofits when it comes to including expanding the number of supported housing. The other thing I think we need to do is look at private equity-backed real estate owners. And one of the ideas that I want to bring forth as an innovative thinker and leader, which is something I strongly believe is critical for a city council member, is looking at a vacancy tax. I think what's unfair is that there are many individuals who own multiple properties when there are neighbors living right beside us who can't even access housing. And in order to create the fairness, currently when I looked at the data, we have around 500 to 600 unoccupied and vacant homes that have been vacant for longer than 6 months. Through a vacancy tax, what we would do is we would incentivize landowners and property owners who have multiple real estate portfolios by creating this vacancy tax with you either rent out these spaces or we're going to tax you as if you were renting those spaces. This way we remove and redirect the tax burden off of the consumers, the small businesses, the business communities through increased taxation through B&Os, levies, and bonds. And we create a more community-based and collaborative approach with land developers, with property owners. The other thing with the vacancy taxes is I think when we look at large developments, when we look at storefronts and when we look at the amount of core leases, here in Kent, the recent data shows that we're about 17% vacant. And so when we're able to utilize motivation and leverage and draw funds from private equity and large developers, then we can help expand housing. Thank you.
Yes, so the City of Kent recently, they have approved their 2024 comprehensive plan, which said that in the next 10 years, the goal is to build 10,000 more units of housing. As a city council member answering the question that was brought up, is what would I do? I would work with my fellow city council members to ensure that a portion of those 10,000 houses are for affordable housing, are low-income housing. And you know, I think when we think about affordable housing and low-income housing, we need to think about multi-generational families. We need to think about townhouses, duplexes, ADU, giving people the freedom to choose housing that works for them. And again, we do need to work with our private developers, our nonprofit developers, our public developers to really look at the entire picture. My family and I, we live in a multi-generational house, so we live up on the East Hill, and there's 10 of us that live there. And that is a model that works for us. It gives us the opportunity to run for city council because I know that my son is at home safe with grandma. Not saying it works for everyone, but it's a model that people should be able to explore. So yes, I think when it comes to affordable housing, I will work with my fellow city council members to ensure that we are taking that into account with the 10,000 new builds that are going to take place in the next 10 years. And that's created because we get data from the state that that's how much is needed with how much growth we're going to have and how many jobs are going to be here in Kent. So we need to ensure that we're planning for that.
Thank you, Andy and Sean. All right, our next question. Start with Sean this time. How to keep the public safe and putting property to good use? I think we heard a little bit about that. In some places in Kent, property is just sitting empty, which makes the public unsafe. What would you do to start putting empty properties to good use?
Yes, so we have many vacant properties. That's been the hot topic these past couple of months, hasn't it? We have the Fred Meyers, the Bartell Drugs, the Walgreens across our city. But you know, this is not new. In any economic landscape, this happens. We've seen it happen time and time again. Businesses shut down due to bankruptcy, due to whatever's happening in our climate. And then the thing that we need to focus on as a city council is what are we going to do with the vacant buildings across our city? So you know, I do want to have incentive programs for property owners who can convert unused housing, like in downtown Kent, have retail below and housing on top. I want to make sure that we're using our vacant buildings until they find permanent homes to have farmers markets, to have festivals, night markets, to have, you know, Christmas or tree lighting or spring festivals that really bring in life to those properties in the meantime. And also code enforcement is something that I believe in. We need to make sure we're keeping our code enforcement and making sure that property owners are taking care of their property when they're sitting vacant. And you know, an example of how we can use our properties in the meantime before they find their permanent home is we think about Bartell drugs up on next to Trader Joe's. So right now it's converted into a spirit Halloween store. I love it. I just took my son there and got him his Woody costume for Halloween. Don't steal this idea. But you know, that's an example of how we can have pop-up shops across our city that really bring people in. And when we think about the World Cup happening next year, maybe we can welcome new restaurants and pop-up shops to really fill up our city temporarily in all these empty spaces that we have. And you know, I even saw on the news today that there's going to be a Spirit Christmas store too. So it's seasonal.
Thank you, Andy. Hold that mic close and get that booming out there.
Yeah.
Us ladies are showing you guys up. That means you too. Pick that mug up so we can hear.
I'm sorry, I'm a therapist, I'm so sorry. But I'll do my best. Yes, also wanting to echo Spirit Christmas, I'm really excited for that. To continue and expand on my idea for a vacancy tax, recent data also shows that cities like Chicago, Atlanta, and most recently Oakland had a near 70 to 80% voter approval rate when these large cities put on the ballot measures for vacancy taxes. What it does is it revitalizes cities in order to keep up with the changing landscapes of our economic circumstances. Currently, places like Microsoft, Boeing, Starbucks, they're laying people off. And what we need to do is have people who are experienced in understanding how business development, real estate, and property works so that we can put in preventative measures and taking steps now so that we don't have to face what many other cities are going to be facing in 4 to 6 years. With the vacancy taxes, we're going to be able to take the burdens, again, off of the taxpayers, off of the consumers, reinvest back in communities, and when we look at the vacancies of city-owned and government-owned buildings, utilizing those, and I presented this to many as well, about how do we utilize that to partner with the Chamber of Commerce and with the business communities to allow small mom-and-pop shops that are predominantly working out of their homes, their garages, or e-commerce to have a circulating system or a schedule where we can allow brick-and-mortar shopping to occur. When we reinvest back into the community, when we partner with the business communities, and we open up opportunities for fulfillment, for being able to purchase, consume, and expand, that's when we see the communities truly thrive, because that money then gets reinvested back into the community so that we can start operating more and reinvesting in big projects like affordable housing.
Okay. Okay. All right. Here we go. All right. Question number 4. We'll start with Andrew. It asks a little bit about you. Your political leanings, your decision-making process, etc. Which way do you lean? Would you characterize your political decisions being left, leaning to the center, or more right-leaning? And please explain why.
That's a challenging one. My decisions are leaning towards people. When I look at all the work that I've done, when we pull up my resume, which is really hard for me to say, my life work has been dedicated to people. I have worked predominantly with the disadvantaged and marginalized communities. I left my cushy job at Seattle Children's and started clinics making far less than I do when I worked at the hospital systems because I saw inequities. I saw that regardless of your political affiliation, your leaning, or your philosophies, at the soul, people have healthcare needs, people need benefits, people need services. Regardless if you're a Republican or if you're a Democrat, healthcare does not discriminate. When it comes to looking at things like my endorsements and where my voting history has run, currently I sit on the Kent School Board. I vote with my conscience on what I think is going to be in the greatest good for the community. I have voted for and against the majority of our board, and I commit to doing the same on the City Council. Looking at the endorsements of the people that I have endorsements all the way from King County Democrats, King County Young Democrats. I have endorsements from more conservative-leaning city council members, all the way through state legislature. And so my approach to politics really is to stay somewhere in the middle, because that's where I truly believe most of the American people are. People just want to be able to know that they can get their bills paid, their kids are going to get a good education, they're going to be safe, they're going to be able to go out and live a fulfilling life. And through all of my work, working with these communities, I pledge to continuously do the same.
So one of the most exciting things for me about running for Kent City Council is that it is a nonpartisan position. It gives us the opportunity to be able to work across party lines to ensure that we're working on practical solutions for the residents of Kent. With that being said, I do have the endorsement of the Democrats of all the legislative districts that cover Kent, but I also have the endorsements of our city council members like Sithwinder Carr, Brenda Fincher, John Boyd, and I also have the endorsement of Bill Boyce, who, when he gave me his endorsement, he said, Sharon, I know we're not going to see eye to eye on everything, but I know that you're somebody that I can work with on practical solutions. And that is a compliment I hold so dearly because that's what I'm committed to. There's way too much divisiveness going on right now, and that does not move us forward. So we need to ensure that we're working across the aisle to ensure that the everyday things are taken care of when it comes to our community. And I think we can see that here, even with, Andy and I on the forum today. We have very similar answers, and Andy's also endorsed by Republicans as well. So, being able to really work across that party line to ensure that we find real solutions to the issues that we face together.
Thank you. This time we'll start with Sharon. And this question is facilities for the homeless. It's a big one. Our city has banned public camping because of complaints from small businesses and community members. What ideas do you have to ramp up services, provide better service to our homeless community in Kent? What are your thoughts on tiny houses to support the homeless?
Yes, so I have worked with youth and young adults experiencing homelessness in foster care, and what we do at the Mockingbird Society is we work directly with them to hear what solutions truly work for them and advocate for those at a state level. And homelessness, I want to find us to have permanent solutions to homelessness, and to me the permanent solution is exiting people out of homelessness and getting them into permanent supportive housing. Everything else is a transition which is very much needed. So when we think about tiny houses, I think that is shelter, and we do need shelter in the meantime of getting people to that place where they're having permanent supportive housing. But however, I want to explore all the options that are out there, and I think that there's not one solution that really works. So working with our city partners, our nonprofits who have done the work to find what do we do in the beginning? When somebody in our city enters homelessness, how do we identify them? What are their needs? What is the transition plan? And then finally, how do we exit them out of homelessness? I really want to work with our city to expand our outreach program that connects people to shelter, mental health care, job opportunities, and I want to work with our regional partners where people can access daily essentials and really bring back some of that dignity, well-being, and belonging for everyone in Kent.
Yep, so again, similarly, I share the same sentiments. I think this is a multi-layered approach, and when we look at the cause for homelessness, it's really easy for us to get caught up in the conversations and dialogues related to, again, the symptoms of what we're seeing overtly present, which is homelessness encampments. I would also like to shift the narrative on public camping bans. That is something I'm actively campaigning on. And this comes from multiple different approaches. One, the population that I serve and work with are people who are low income disadvantaged, people who are exiting and transitioning out of homelessness. And through just anecdotal data and looking at research from all across the board, we see that there's not a one-size-fits-all. And that's what the state of Washington has been doing. We create one shelter and we expect everybody who are in different stages of recovery, transition, and through their healing processes to just utilize one standardized way of being housed, which are through these large shelters. And so the things that I would be advocating for, in addition to a public camping ban, because to me, that is compassionate care. To be able to walk by and see somebody and say, you know what, I'm gonna allow them to continue sustaining this style of living, to me is not compassion. I think it's an easy way to push the problem aside and say this is somebody else's problem. With the public camping ban, I would also pair that with increased funding to increasing access to services, detox programs, substance use treatment centers, tiny homes, utilizing vacant spaces for housing, and then also ensuring that when we do open up shelters and other housing alternatives, that it is not a one-size approach. Some of the things that we miss in our systems currently is we don't have shelter housing options for single men with children, women with children, families. And so we need to look at the entire person, the entire family system and structure, and look at what's going to be best for the city of Kent and how do we leverage our existing partnerships and also work within reason and common sense of funding opportunities to ensure that we're going to help the most of our population that we can.
Okay, let's see, starting with Andy, this is question number 6, talking about how we serve youth and families. Do you agree with working together with King County to provide services to our youth and families? Our city cannot do it alone.
Yeah, absolutely, especially since we're name dropping. Vermont is a huge advocate and proponent that has been pushing for youth prevention violence, shelters, treatments, and other programs throughout King County. That is an initiative that I also worked alongside with him during my time at Seattle Children's Hospital. The work that I do currently, in 2020, I was nominated in Washington for the Champion for Children's Award. I worked in systems from Department of Children, Youth, and Families as a CPS investigator, where I worked in child trafficking. I was a crisis co-responder for the Seattle Police Department. And now, not only do I teach future therapists and human service workers, but I own and operate and run multiple clinics serving the vast spectrum of mental health, but all ranging from my youngest client being 3 to 4 due to disabilities and trauma, all the way through later adulthood. And I think what we need to do is refocus how do we leverage our partnerships with community providers so that we can expand the accessibility to care. Because there's this narrative that there's not enough providers, and I think that's false. And I think it's because of the way that our systems and motivations are currently created that are prohibited from providers wanting to enter this field.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure.
Mic back on. Okay, number 6, how will you serve youth and families? Do you agree with working together with King County to provide services to our youth and families? Our city cannot do it alone.
Absolutely, our city cannot do it alone. We need to work with our regional partners or state partners to ensure that we are leveraging resources, grants in every spectrum. We need to make sure that we're supporting youth and young adults, we're supporting seniors. As somebody who's a mom and I want to see my child and every other child in Kent grow up with everything that we could possibly get for them. So I think there's a lot of things that the city does, and I think that the city does a great job at, and I also think there's things that we can leverage county and state support with. And also, having aging parents, I want to make sure that there's resources for our seniors as well. And yes, I think that we are stronger when we work together, and I think we definitely need to do that.
Thank you both. These are very hard questions.
Yep, just a quickie announcement. We're going to start going through the questions, audience questions that people have submitted, so please get them to Dawn. So when we finish the prepared questions, then we'll get 1 or 2 audience questions, for folks. So please get them to her.
Or Matt.
Oh, Matt, okay.
Matt, wait a minute. Any questions to Matthew also? Matthew is taking questions. There's a question over.
I can help collect too.
I'm going to read it, or you? So we're going to finish these and then go? Okay. All right, who are we starting with this time? Andy? Who do we start with? Okay, Sharon. All right, start with that. Thank you for keeping us together. ICE relations and protection. Do you agree with protecting our vulnerable families, populations from ICE raids?
No family should live in fear of separation. No family should be afraid when there's a knock on the door, when they're going to work, when kids are going to work, when we're accessing health care. No family should live in fear of separation, and I'll leave it there.
Absolutely. I think we also need to work with our state legislators and lawmakers in ensuring that there's going to be protections and equal rights to ensuring that those who are most vulnerable, and also those who just look like the profile of those that might be targeted by ICE. Growing up, I remember this being a very large topic in our family. My mom was adopted. My grandfather is white and my grandmother is Mexican. And so I come from a very diverse family and have a very diverse understanding of what some of these lived experiences look like, what people are truly experiencing out there. My perspective on the Kent School Board, one of the things that we're seeing is a drop in enrollment and also a lack of community involvement from families because of their fear, because of the uncertainty of what the political climate might do in terms of their vulnerability because of their ethnicity, the way that they look, or their immigration status. And so, yes, I fully support the City of Kent and the current initiatives that we have through our partnership with Chief Padilla. I think he's done an amazing job up until this point in making sure that there's equal justice and social justice given to our immigrant and vulnerable populations.
What is your best idea for supporting small businesses in the city of Kent?
Yes, so I'm a small business owner. I started, operated, ran my own small business, and so I can speak from personal experiences of what it's like to hire people who are local, give good paying jobs, being unionized, and advocating for people at the forefront. In addition to that, I also want to work better and partner with the city of Kent so that we can be business forward in terms of how do we reduce limitations, restrictions, and red tape that prohibit or make it difficult for small businesses to be able to run and function, especially through the licensing processes. For say like endorsements, typically a business license takes around 10 to 15 days, but we're also seeing, especially from our minority business owners, that that process may take longer because there's a lot of redundancies in place. And so I think if we can approach it from a space of advocacy and support, that's one way we could support small businesses. The other thing we need is, I think, with small businesses is financial literacy. Personally, I was able to survive COVID while keeping all of my staff hired and paid, even though it took a hit to our overall finances, but we rebounded. I was also awarded by the Puget Sound Business Journal for 40 under 40 for my sustainable business practices. And so when it comes to sustaining, operating, and growing a small business, I think I have what it takes to be able to work alongside the Chamber of Commerce, the business communities, and also City of Kent to make sure that there's leverage and motivations that benefit everybody.
So small businesses are the backbone of our economy here. You know, I do want to, one of my best ideas is to launch or encourage a Shop Kent First campaign that encourages residents to spend their dollars here locally so that we can keep our tax dollars here in Kent. And I also want to work with our Chamber of Commerce to make sure that we have a resource hub where we can provide permits, grants, and technical support. And then, you know, I want to encourage more farmers markets, vendors markets, night markets, where people can test their products, and maybe their products are really well loved and they're able to go and open a shop here in downtown Kent. And I got that idea because the other day I was door knocking and I met this wonderful lady, and she sells the most amazing skincare, like the kind of ingredients that you would pay a lot of money for, but she sells it here locally. And you know, to be able to, she said that she has been at the Living Well farmers market, and she's really picked up a lot of momentum that way, and she's thinking about looking into whether she can have a location here in Kent. And I think that's how we can cultivate people who have that entrepreneurship spirit in our city, to really give them the opportunity to showcase what they've got, and then hopefully they can open up a local shop here and we have more of that variety. And then, you know, when we think about small businesses, I also want to look at our entire our ecosystem of businesses here in Kent. We have manufacturers, we have distributors, farmers, aerospace, and all of them play a part. And I think that when we talk about business, we need to talk about everybody together and how we can work together in this ecosystem, and bringing people to the table, as well as our labor unions, as well as employers and jobs and employees, to ensure that we have that balance, which I know is hard to achieve, but we need leaders who are committed to the balance and thinking of the entire ecosystem, as well as our workers and their rights.
Thank you both once again. Sean, we're going to start with you. Traffic safety. Speed bumps, raised crosswalks, and traffic circles have been put in to help with traffic safety. By last September in 2024, Kent had 5 fatalities in 42 pedestrian accidents around the city. What will you do or have you done to keep pedestrians and cyclists safe on our streets?
Yeah, so when I talk about public safety, traffic safety is a big part of that for me. So, you know, down in the valley, when I was door knocking down there, I hear how, you know, when people are rushing in the morning or in the afternoon during rush hour to get to work, and, you know, they cut through neighborhoods, they go a little faster than they should. Those type of situations we need to work on as a city, and I really identifying where the hot spots are in our city where that's happening. Up on the East Hill, we have major corridors, and intersections are far away from each other, so we see a lot of jaywalking. And the 5 pedestrian deaths, I want to know, where did those happen? I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'd love to. And so we can identify where in our city is it not working, where in our city is traffic not safe. And then also I want to think about our high traffic areas like our schools or senior centers, where we see tons of people on the street going to school, going to work, and we need to make sure that we have raised sidewalks, we have enough crosswalks. Where there's blind spots, those are, we have signs up for blind spots. Well-lit streets, I didn't realize until I started door knocking in Kent how many streets in Kent don't have street lights, mine included. So making sure that we are thinking of the holistic picture there. And then also, talking about our county programs that we were talking about in a previous question, working on the Safe Routes to School program and really continuing to strengthen that partnership here in Kent so that we can utilize everything that we are given at the county level, at the state level, well, not given, that we could apply for and work with, to really utilize that here at the local level. Because for me, traffic safety is a very big part of public safety.
My turn?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, same thing for traffic safety. As I'm out there door knocking, I've also witnessed and experienced what it's like to go through certain neighborhoods where we don't have the raised sidewalks, where there are no speed bumps, where I do see people cutting through the neighborhoods. And when I started to look at the problem, I got so caught up on why they're speeding, why are we cutting through these neighborhoods? And for me, I think a lot of the focus also needs to be put back onto additional routes and looking at the highway congestions and the congestions from major thoroughways of Kent. When we reference a lot of those deaths, and those accidents, they actually happened during school hours. 3 of those from last year were because people were not patient enough to wait for school buses. And so unfortunately, we did lose a couple lives that were Kent School District students because as students were trying to cross the street, cars weren't obeying and following the laws of stopping behind a school bus. And so looking at the cause from a more geographical perspective of what's causing this, and then how do we improve things like bus routes, public transportations. When I was endorsed by the Urbanists, they're one of the leading advocacy groups on traffic safety and also utilizing alternative ways for transportation. And I think if we can expand and limit, or not limit, and remove the limitations for how people commute, then we can also work on addressing the amount of traffic-related incidents, accidents, and deaths that we're experiencing today.
So we have finished a portion of that section of, yes, prepared questions. Now these are the questions from our audience. Let's start with this one. I don't know if Kent uses private jails, but assuming they do you support Kent using private jails, funding them, meaning that?
I can go first. Yeah, so the city of Kent, we do have the RJC Center here, but then we also contract with the local jail called SCORE. They're a private facility, and this is a really difficult one, right? Because one thing is we want to support our law enforcement, social justice, criminal justice, and ensuring that we're upholding the laws. When it comes to utilizing the jail occupancies, our current RJC jails aren't used at full capacity, and this comes to a couple different reasons. One, our contracts and partnerships with Department of Corrections, staffing, the capacity and the ability to provide the level of staffing, coverage, and liabilities to utilize those spaces that we have within Kent. And so when we look at the costs associated with utilizing SCORE, we're looking at about like $70-ish for processing fees, and I think it came out to about $200 a day to house somebody in SCORE for criminal related charges. On average, we see that private jails hold people between 2 to 10 days. When we tally up the total number of how much the city of Kent is spending, that comes out to close to $1 million. I think last year Kent spent somewhere around $700,000 to $800,000. And when we look at reinvesting those costs into preventative measures, prevention programs, increasing our contracts with our local law enforcement, and putting in more determinants, then I think we could cut back on the utilization of private jails.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know a lot about our private jail system, so I'd love whoever brought that question up, if you could educate me on that. I'd love to learn more about that and see, yeah, I don't know enough about that to answer that question. Thank you.
Thanks for being honest. Boy, that's a pretty shocking, huh? Okay, did you want to ask that?
Audience question number 2. Please tell us about your track record of public service in the community.
Yeah. Okay. So like I said, I've lived in Kent my entire life, so I have been a part of community service since the beginning. I think, there's a couple people in the room tonight that have really fostered that love of community service with me. So, being on the Kent Cultural Communities Board is the first time that I really got involved with the city of Kent. I was 17 years old, and I was the youngest person on that board. So being able to provide that feedback of what my community has experienced living in Kent, and being able to provide that feedback to the city. Being a part of street cleanups, I also used to teach martial arts for about 10 years to a group of students in Kent. One of my students is here today. Hi, Prabshan. But yeah, I taught that for a while, and I really supported students throughout that way. And then Kent School District, one of my, I think, from being a part of the city work, and folks invited me to go and talk to all the principals when it was about 7-8 years ago. And they invited me to talk to all the principals about the Sikh identity. And then I got offered a job to be a policy intern, and I had no idea what policy was at that point. Actually, I think this was about 10 years ago. So, being able to get that opportunity to be a part of the city of Kent and get those opportunities really, really navigated how my life turned out.
My first job in public service or community service was when I was in high school. My first job was at the age of 16. I worked at a disability summer camp, and that's what I did for most of my career through my undergraduate master's degree programs, where I worked with families and I worked with individuals with varying degrees of disabilities, because they were the voices that go often unheard and unseen in our society. And that's what really reached out to me. That's why I decided to become a therapist. I wanted to provide support and guidance to those who needed it the most. I was appointed by Jay Inslee in 2018 to work on his disability rights and employment committee, where I worked across the state in implementing multiple different measures. Like when we think about accessibility, right? If you go to Seattle, if you go to First Avenue, part of the work that we did is if you go to any of the buildings, because it's a huge hill on James Street, every building has elevators that take you to the next block, so that people with disabilities or mobility limitations can have access to different parts of our cities. I run and operate clinics. I work with kids with disabilities. I work with families who others will not work with. When I worked at Seattle Children's, our unit was the hardest to staff, because I worked with the families and the kids who burnt out of every possible program. These were kids that were being flown in from all over the country because nobody was able to serve them. And that is the same level of dedication that I want to bring to the city of Kent. I'm somebody who looks for solutions. I go for the why, and I also go for the yes. And how do we make sure that this person is going to have the services, benefits, and supports that they need so that they can have a sustainable and fulfilling life? In addition to all of that, I'm also currently serving on the Kent School Board. My nickname is the voice of reason, because I'm somebody who can work across both lines, Democrat or Republican, because we serve the entirety of Kent, and all voices, all identities matter. And so my dedication to community service has been perpetuated throughout my career, my passions, my volunteerism, and hopefully I can continue that by earning your vote as Kent City Council.
Okay. Start with Andy this time. This will be the last question. Last question. Start with Andy this time. Cities like Seattle have a robust post-overdose programs such as Health 99 and Orca Center and the Orca Center. Do you support implementation of similar programs here in Kent?
I'm actually not too familiar with those programs. When we talk about overdose, I'm assuming you're referring to substance use treatment centers, right? Okay. Post-overdose, yes. I think where our systems are currently lacking is the way that our criminal justice system is looped into substance use. When you get a drug charge, a lot of the time there's compelled or forced treatment. So typically the pathway is you'll go to court, you'll be here arraigned, and then you'll meet with a outpatient provider. You'll go to a place like CMAR, which is local to us. They'll do an assessment depending on your score. They determine whether or not you would benefit from either inpatient or intensive outpatient services. From there, because of insurance, because most of the people who are utilizing these services are Medicaid funding, they're very prohibited and tied to the Medicaid state system. And so in order for you to get those services, you have to go through that streamlined process. Now, what I think we can do here in the city of Kent to become innovative is to partner with them and to partner with other local nonprofits and raise funding so that we can open up things like detox centers, treatment centers, and also outpatient related services so that we don't have to have things that are just for post-overdose, but then taking the post-overdose and making it more of a preventative measure that's implemented citywide and not just located at a center. So doing things like Narcan training, ensuring that businesses and community members and all our schools have access and means of ways of responding to the drug crisis when confronted with it.
Yeah, so I also don't know a lot about that program. However, I do believe in working with our nonprofits and those who have the experience and expertise in topics. We do need to support people out of addiction and support people post. And make sure that we're doing that in a way that's not duplicating efforts. So if I was elected on the city council, I would make sure to identify what are the programs, what are the nonprofits, who are the experts at this. It's impossible for one single person to be the expert on every topic. But what you do need out of an elected official is somebody who's willing to learn, grow, and say they don't know the answer when they don't know the answer. So really making sure to go out there and learn from the nonprofits and experts, and that's what I would do to support our folks in ensuring that we're coming up with real solutions when it comes to addiction.
Okay, all right, well, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break so you have an opportunity to meet the candidates and mingle and whatnot. And then our next set of candidates are the other individuals running for Kent City Council. So we'll get them up front and we'll get started in about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Hello. We're going to get everyone seated, please. If we can get everybody seated. If we can get everyone seated, we have some more candidates coming up. Everyone, we had our 5-minute break. I hope you were able to get a snack, get some water, and you're ready to listen to these two. Tammy, are you going to come and introduce them? Again, please, everyone put your phones away. Be patient with our microphones. Put your phones away. Please, candidates, put your phones and your laptops away. Anything electronic, you gotta go. Yep, everything's you got it? You good? Okay, now, if anybody gets out of turn, oh, you gotta put it to your, no. I have the power of the microphone and I'm louder, so it's just best just to control your own self. That'll go well, okay? So, do we have elected officials in the audience? Just set. Oh, there we go. If you all can please stand up, elected officials. Can you clap it up for the city council? School board member. Okay, there's a school board member back there. Clap it up. All right, thank you. So, do you have any teachers in the audience? Teachers? Yeah, thank you to the teachers. We have a teacher right there. We have a teacher who is connected to all the students. Thank you to the candidates who just spoke, Andy Song and Sean. We're going to move on, and I'm going to let you have at it to introduce them, Tammy. Also, you all hold the microphone close to your mouth so it won't go in and out. And we're going to have the people asking questions, we're going to have them talk a little louder so for the people in the back. The security was clear that they're listening. The security was like, we're listening too. So can they speak up? All right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I know they weren't talking about me, though. So next up, we have our candidates for position number 2, our incumbent, Salaxley, and Neat Rewal. So we are going to start, since she is next on this list in this flyer, we'll start with Neat first, and our incumbent after this. Would you like to ask the first question? Which one are we going to ask first? Well, let them do. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is a team effort. We have to have them do our introductions.
Right.
So go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Neat Rewal. Thank you guys so much for putting on this event. I really appreciate the opportunity to come in our community and connect together. And I could sit here and tell you guys about everything that I've done and what I've done, but I'd rather tell you about who I am. I grew up in a Christian school, so I actually have a special place in my heart for Christian churches. And one of the verses I love is Proverbs 31:4, which is speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute, and speak up and judge fairly and defend the rights of the poor and the needy. And that's exactly why I'm running here for Kent City Council, is to give people that don't have a voice. In the past, it's been a long time since communities have come together and we've actually spoke up. So that's about me, that's who I am. What I've done, I've worked in 42 states, I've worked on countless initiatives, referendums, presidential campaigns, local campaigns, everything about in between. So that's a little about me. I have 5 years of experience doing that. Right after I graduated from UW, I got my degree in political science, so I've had a passion for this since day one, and that's a little about me, and thank you for having me.
Good evening, everyone. Does it work?
Hello.
It's on now? All right, okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I know it's long night, but thank you. We appreciate you being here. My name is Salaxley, and I am a Kent City Council member right now, Council President. I grew up in Kent, graduated from Kentridge High School, and now my kids are in Kent schools. I started my first job actually at 16 here in Kent at a senior adult care facility. I was working to help support my family. And I have worked in our warehouses in Kent, loading, unloading trailers, and moving up to management. When I was a senior manager at a corporation, I decided to pursue my MBA, and that is when I took on a second job at mayor's office. And that's how I actually got my start in local government. I started working for the mayor's office and city council, and I learned the importance of our local government. And I graduated. I currently work as a senior engineer for a tech company. And when I started my career, I needed to give back to our community, so I stayed connected, volunteering in our parks, street cleanups, and working with various nonprofit organizations. And at that time, organically, our community asked me to run for office, and I did, and I became the first Sikh woman city council member in Washington State. And I've been serving, had the honor to serve you for the last 8 years. And I want to talk about, that's the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to, basically, to keep it consistent, listen to and ask the same questions. It's for our city council, so it's no need to deviate. So, the first question about graffiti. Kent passed an ordinance in 2022 aimed at reducing graffiti and restricting access to spray paint. How would you access city funds to clean up the graffiti that has been a nuisance and keep our city looking familiar? No, we have 2 minutes, and that's the 1 minute signal, and then wrap it up at 15 seconds. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So graffiti is a problem in our community. So that's why we actually, City Council passed a law to make it illegal to sell aerosol sprays to underage individuals. And we also added funding in our budget, $250,000 to work on graffiti. So we contract with our different small businesses to help with graffiti, and we also host cleanup days for graffiti, where we have our electeds, our police officers, and our community members get involved to help remove graffiti from our community. And we have also, this microphone's a little glitchy, I'm sorry. We also, work with, so have you seen those utility boxes in our community? That is deterred graffiti. That was a great program that we started, and I think we have 30 plus utility boxes now that have amazing art represented, diverse artists from our community participating in that. So when you see graffiti for small businesses and homeowners, please do call us, because we do get involved and go remove that graffiti. So that, I think that's the missing piece, where the residents don't know that they can call in and the city does help. So.
Well, if you guys don't know me, my name is, what I always say is my name is Neat, like neat and tidy, and I'm here to clean up Kent. So that's literally my plan to clean up Kent. Is part of that is the graffiti. And so in my neighborhood, my neighbors' fences, they actually got graffitied and tagged up, and a lot of these people doing this are underage, and they're also a lot of gang members. So for me, I like to address the problem at the root of the cause, instead of gang signaling and tagging with graffiti. It happens on even private properties, and also happens to small businesses. So unlike my opponent just said, which is you can call the city, in my neighborhood when we were tagged up, since it was our private fences, we couldn't call the city. It actually fell on our HOA, and all of us had to come together and pitch in to take care of it. So it actually is a root problem that we need to address as a community, and the way that we can do that is by addressing the underlying issue, which is gangs and just kids having nothing better to do sometimes. Sometimes it's just fun for them. So let's create better youth programs. Let's create more gang diversion programs. That's actually something I'm heavily involved in here in Kent, and I think that's a great way to get them out of tagging and the streets and get them more into better programs and things like that. So, yeah.
All right, question number 2. Housing. Low-income housing has been a challenge in different cities around Washington State. As a city council member, how would you work together with other city council members for low-income housing development in our city? How would you support organizations that offer direct housing assistance? We'll start with Neat.
So housing is definitely an issue here in Kent, and I agree with using public-private partnerships and using I worked in a lot of different cities that have similar demographics to Kent, and I know what works and what doesn't. Currently, every single year, we have a $600 million budget, and every single year we're throwing more money towards housing, and yet the problem is getting exacerbated. So it doesn't really add up to keep throwing money at failing programs. What I think we need to do is instead reallocate the budget and try new things. Let's have a change, and let's try new things that are going to work. I think the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I think Albert Einstein said that, and I agree with him. So I think our city could take some notes from that. I think we need to get public-private partnerships involved instead of federal grants and funding, things like that. And also taxpayer subsidized housing. It's not working because, for example, one of the buildings I'm very familiar with, I have a very special place in my heart for our veterans. Via Bowman is right there on the West Hill. They were funded to be affordable housing, and then 30% of the allocation went to veterans, 70% was to low-income housing and things like that. But without regulations such as drug testing and things like that, the building has gone rampant and become a hotspot for crime. It's become a hotspot for drug use, and in fact, the veterans are actually some of them are using fentanyl as well. So it kind of backfired. It was something done with a good intention, but without regulations and true way to kind of regulate everything and keep things in line and uphold the rule of law, then we're not going to get very far. So I think that's what we need to do is public-private partnerships and regulate.
Thank you for the question. First of all, I want to clarify, City of Kent's budget is $440 million, not $600. And a lot of it is tied up in funds that like criminal justice fund or we have debt to pay, and we have public works, utilities, we have other, there's special funds that we cannot touch. So the area that city council can make an impact is in general fund. And general fund, 50% or more actually goes to police. So some information just for clarification. But talking about the homelessness, city does partner with South King County Housing and Affordable Partnership with our South King County cities, because alone we cannot solve this problem. So we have to come together regionally with our neighboring cities to solve this. And from that project, we've been able to fund 5 different projects in South King County. 2 of them are, one is opening up next year, 2026, in Kent by Light Rail, and there's going to be another one by Star Lake Station. So there's going to be 2 projects coming out in Kent. One of them is going to have 30 to 80% EMI, plus we have percentage of housing going to individuals with disabilities, providing resources and connections. And the second one is going to also have 30 to 80% EMI, but also having home housing units for our individuals who are in and right now homelessness, or are going to be losing their housing. So those projects, those kind of partnerships are they work effectively because we put our resources together because of the amount of limited resources we individually have. So I would definitely encourage continuing working on those type of partnerships so we can build more projects around South County, not just in Kent, around the region, so we can help have more housing units available for our individual families who are facing homelessness.
Thank you. Our next question, how do we keep the public safe and putting property to good use? Some places in Kent, properties are just sitting empty, which makes the public unsafe. What would you do to start putting empty properties to good use? Start with Sam.
Thank you. So I think most recent place that comes to mind is Fred Meyer's, but I want to talk about there are some property owner rights that we have to work with our private property owners and work with code enforcement to encourage the property owners to clean up their properties, to sell their properties, and because we don't private ownerships, right? They're private property rights that we have. But talk about Fred Meyer specifically, we are working with them to ensure they will have it fenced properly. We are working with them to encourage them to sell that as soon as possible, so we can use it for future. It could be multi-family units coming up in there. It could be some innovative other business ideas coming up in there. So we definitely work with our code enforcement, our economic community development department, having conversations with those property owners.
My perspective that resonates heavily with a lot of the residents and neighbors that I've talked to here in Kent is that first we need to cultivate a culture that drives business to want to even come here and then stay here. So yes, we can build things, we're in these empty buildings, or we could tear them down, but that doesn't solve the problem. Like, it's not even just Fred Meyer's, it's 7 other businesses as well just within the past year. There's Bartels, there's Rite Aid, there's Walgreens, and all these places are actually places that had pharmacies as well. So our seniors, our elderly, or people that have disabilities or need their medication are really affected by this. And I have people talking to me about this all day, every day. So yeah, sure, we can tear down the Fred Meyer, or tear down the Rite Aid, or tear down the Walgreens and build multifamily housing, but what about the needs and the places that this was for our community? How are we going to replace that? Ultimately, that's replaced by businesses, and when businesses don't want to come to Kent, and in fact they want to leave Kent, as we can't solve a problem if we don't even admit it exists. So maybe someone thinks that everything is perfectly fine and that the way that things have been going is great, but I know and I feel like you guys feel and our community feels that I've talked to that things aren't fine, and people are being affected by this lack of business. They're being affected by these things, and that's what I'm here advocating for, is first cultivating a culture that's driven by policies that incentivize small business growth, that incentivize businesses to want to come here and stay here in Kent. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, this question gets to which way do you lean? A little bit about your background, where you're coming from, how you approach questions and issues. How would you characterize your political decisions? Being left-leaning, to the center, or more right-leaning, and why?
I am personally an outsider and an independent. I have been in both parties. Sometimes I disagree with, and sometimes both parties I agree with. And also, I've taken pictures with national figures that are right-wing, that are left-wing, but, you know, as tends to happen, they only like to circulate the right-wings ones because that's kind of a touchy topic around here, but that's okay. So I have a lot of pictures with national figures that are from the Democrat side, and I have a lot of pictures with national figures that are from the conservative side. And that's because I'm 27, I'm young, and I had the opportunity to connect with national figures, and I love listening to both sides. I love learning from people that are in these leadership positions and seeing how our national figures, we can actually see what work they do and how I can bring that expertise or knowledge or strategies down to our local level, back to our community. So for me, I've been an outsider my whole life, but my favorite quote is the black sheep becomes the goat, because I feel that. So I think that, you know, eventually when it comes down to party politics, it's all divisive. I think it's really used to control us and divide us and make us, it's like a red herring, like we get distracted from community and what brings us together. So I like to focus on human consciousness and what brings us together as people. I don't care about outside things that are outside of Kent. I care about Kent. That's why I'm running here in a nonpartisan race, because I want to be able to have us look past these issues of party politics. And that's what I care about. So that's why I'm here today. And I think that there's a huge stigma around me being, you know, a certain way. Really, I don't care. I have best friends that are very, very liberal and best friends that are very, very conservative. And that's because I connect with people on a soul level, on a cellular level, on a consciousness level, and a spiritual level. So that's what I want to do and bring into our community.
First of all, I want to give a shout out to Councilmember partners in the room. Hello. And then going back to the question, so I am a very practical person. So my decision-making on the City Council has been all about focusing on the issues that are about our community, and that is why I have the endorsement of my colleagues who are Democrat and Republican on City Council, and our local electeds serving on the King County Council and others. And I also have endorsement from King County Democrats, 47 District Democrats, 33rd District Democrats, and 11 District Democrats. But that is my decision-making has been focusing on the residents of Kent. This is because I have voted on things that are like public safety, I voted on things that are for improvement of our streets and our parks, and I voted on things that are for our youth programs. And I do want to highlight one comment here that my opponent here actually was the person who created that big fuss about Charlie Kirk a couple of weeks ago at KSD. So when saying that I only care about the issues for Kent, shouldn't have done that. So thank you.
That was the Kent School District, which does pertain to Kent.
Question number 5, facilities for the homeless. Our city has banned public camping because of complaints from small businesses and community members. What ideas do you have to ramp up services and provide better services to our homeless community in Kent?
Just to reiterate the rules, no speaking out of turn and respecting your opponents, okay?
Okay. What are your thoughts on tiny houses and to support the homeless?
Of course, right? Yes. All right, so in our City of Kent's comprehensive plan that we just passed, we're actually looking at all types of housing, including transitional housing. And we are also we improved ADUs in 2023. So we're looking at diversity of housing, increasing density, which is what we have to build over, like I think Sharon actually mentioned it earlier, 10,000 units in Kent for our growth. So we're certainly looking at growth, and we're looking at by planning it strategically on where we want our growth to be, because we want to make sure our new units that are coming in, they have We have transportation available for them, that we have resources available for them. So, working with SKIP, that I mentioned earlier, partnership with SKIP organization, building housing that is for our community, that is for individuals who are facing homelessness. So, the housing that is coming up next to light rail are the locations where we are able to provide better services, so those individuals are able to get to the services that they need and the resources that they need, making it easier. And so transit-oriented development is highly what I definitely support.
Well, the question was, do we or do we not support tiny homes? And I never heard an answer to that question, so I'll give you my stance, which is that last time we tried to pass tiny homes, the community actually got together and we had over 500 residents sign a petition saying, please don't do this in our community, let's find different alternative methods. So what I support is not about what NEAT wants, it's about what the community that I promise and one day vow to represent wants. So if the community says no, then I say no, because I believe in democracy and I believe in representing the people. So the last time that happened, when 500 people said no, our council actually did a great job at listening. All 8 members, everyone besides that Winder, she did not, she actually came up and said, no, I think that the vote needs to continue, and she voted for tiny homes, even though the people and the rest of the council together said they did not. And if that is up for contest, I can actually provide documentation from the Kent Reporter and the meeting minutes if anyone's interested in seeing that. So personally, I believe in representing the community that I vow to represent. If our community wants tiny homes, then I will find a way to negotiate and mediate that. And I don't believe in 50% of Kent being happy while the other 50% is unhappy. I believe in unanimous, at least harmony, living in harmony with our neighbors regardless of our differences. And I have the expertise and the charisma and the love and the compassion to be able to come to the table and negotiate and make things happen, then find a result that at least both parties are somewhat happy to walk away with.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, the next question is number 6. How will you serve youth and families? Do you agree with working together with King County to provide service
So it takes extra effort for elected officials to reach out to historically underserved community members. And the reason is because oftentimes they don't come to events like this. Oftentimes, there are other events that happen within different communities. And so what I do is I actively attend all of the neighborhood events, community events and whatnot. I go to the local area churches. I also go to the local neighborhood barbecues and block parties and stuff like that. I ask people to invite me, and I'm happy to attend birthday parties and whatnot. One of the things that I have been doing over the last 10 years is every Sunday I have been hosting a coffee chat in SEATTLEC. Anyone can come, everyone is welcome. I'll buy you a cup of coffee or tea or whatever drink you would like. And I've been doing this every Sunday for 10 years, so anyone can come and speak with me directly, and I would love to do that in all of the cities in District 5. Thank you.
It's a really important question to make sure we are representing everyone in our community. And I've already been out meeting with community members who are historically underserved. I've been reaching out to a lot of nonprofits all throughout the district and engaging them in what they need and want. And for example, I think it's really important that when we set policies, we ask the people doing the work. It's really easy to say, hey, I think this group should be doing this, or this law should, affect this community in this way. But it doesn't actually work when you actually implement it. So asking groups what they need. For example, we met with an East African child care provider nonprofit, and they provide services to child care providers, children, and families, and connect them with resources and infrastructure support. And things that they shared were things that I had not thought of. For in-home care providers, rent increases suddenly, or high insurance costs. These are things that as policymakers you're thinking about connecting kids and families to get child care, but the implementation of actually running a child care and the costs associated with it, or the barriers they're running into with permitting and the surrounding community. One child care provider found a homeless man in her home doing drugs on the stairs because she had left her door open. And it's things like that that you don't think about when you're setting policy. So it's really important to open the door and engage with the folks doing the work in the community.
Question number 3, starting with Stephanie. South King County has a growing LGBTQ plus community. What is your plan to outreach and serve the community? How will you serve the community specifically to Kent?
Sorry, I keep turning it off. I should stop doing that. So being an inclusive community is critical. We have experienced an increasing rate of violence against, in particular, our trans community. We've had, in the last month, at least 2 attacks in Seattle and in Renton in the district. Those are being explored or examined as hate crimes, and they should be, because if you are being targeted for your sexual orientation, that is a hate crime. We need to engage our community members, and again, as we're building policies, as we're looking at how the county should be approaching our communities, we need to be talking to the people who are being impacted across the board. So, sorry, I thought you were going to wave at me.
No. Don't want to make it.
Yeah. So it's really important to open the door, engage with our communities, and follow the lead about what the communities need, not, again, us setting the policies for the community.
Wait for the train to go by, but we'll go. So we might have to wait a while. So so first of all, growing up in New York City, I still have childhood friends back in New York City, and I have a lot of friends here locally as well. Many of who are LGBTQIA+. So regarding the discrimination, hatred, targeting, all of that stuff, I personally experienced that growing up. And I re-experienced that during the pandemic when the whole AAPI hate thing re-emerged. So I understand the challenges, I understand the perspective of the folks who get targeted. We need to not just create safe spaces, we need to publicly declare that this is not acceptable. All are welcome, and the city of SeaTac has done that. We also need to create a specific policies and make sure that everyone understands that everyone is equal, everyone is welcome, and everyone is protected. We need to make sure that everyone understands that as well. So, thank you.
That's 1 minute. I mean, you still have 1 minute.
It's okay, thank you.
Just want to make sure that you don't spend. Question number 4. What are your plans to support the Black and brown communities being pushed out of Seattle due to gentrification?
Me. So that is a tough one. I do know that a lot of folks who have recently relocated down to District 5 relocated from Seattle because they got priced out of Seattle. And so, including me. In fact, I used to rent a tiny apartment in Lower Queen Anne, and the rent kept going up. Got too expensive, saved up money. Seattle was not affordable, so I ended up down here in SeaTac because it was more affordable. What I think we should do, and which I have been doing in SeaTac, is make sure that our area remains affordable so that people do not get displaced out of District 5. Why? Because District 5 has some of the most affordable housing available in all of King County. If somebody gets displaced from District 5, they have nowhere else to go in the county. They have to move to another county, oftentimes to another state altogether. And I have personal friends who got priced out and have to move to another completely different state. And that is devastating. It upsets uproots families, and we need to make sure that our policies are careful and our approach is deliberate to make sure that we keep the cost of living affordable in District 5. Thank you.
So I also agree that we need to keep housing affordable. That means that we need to ensure that the affordable housing we have now is safe. We have a lot of empty units that are empty because either the buildings are unsafe or the environment is unsafe. And we need to make sure that we can utilize the housing that is currently available. We do need to build more housing. With regard to our Black and brown communities, we need to not only make sure that they can stay here, but that they can build or purchase homes here. So just like we heard about from Dawn and the financing to help community members buy their own homes, the Covenant Home Ownership Program is another example that supports historically disenfranchised members of our community and allows them to obtain affordable loans and housing purchase abilities. So that is critical. We also need to ensure that as we gentrify our community, that we aren't displacing our community. And we've seen that happen in multiple areas across District 5, including in SeaTac. But we also need to support our community members, and if they are being displaced, first we should try not to displace our community members, but if they are being displaced, we need to support them in finding affordable, community-oriented areas that are not in a different county, that are not in a different city. We need to lift up our communities across the board.
Okay. Before the next question, just want to remind everybody, if you have a question, please get it up shortly because we're getting close to the end of the panel questions. Question number 5, how are you planning to ensure that all people being priced out of Seattle have pathways to ownership and therefore generational health, not just relegated to subsidized apartment units? Okay, so we touched on a little bit, but you get to expand now.
Yeah, I did mention that because I think they go hand in hand, right? As we displace our community members, it's especially important to make sure that we are putting them on pathways to home ownership. So I really like the Covenant home ownership program. It lifts up our community members with funding access. Other things that we have to be careful of is displacement due to eminent domain. We have a very well-known person in our Renton community, John Houston, whose family was displaced by eminent domain when the school district purchased their house to build a school, and ended up not building the school, and his family sort of fell apart after that. He recently came out with a book. I highly recommend it. He's an amazing human, and he overcame a lot after that. But he also helped pass a law with Senator Bob Hasagawa on the use of eminent domain and ensuring that if you are, if your home is purchased under an eminent domain and it's not utilized for the reason it was purchased, you can buy it back at the price you sold it for. So we need to build in those protections. We need to ensure that we are using our eminent domain authority wisely. I really don't like eminent domain because you're taking someone's property away from them. But there are cases in which they needs to be utilized. For example, the county recently eminent domain a series of properties, just not any homes, but close to the edge of their properties along Benson for the Rapid Ride Eye Line. And so that was done very cautiously and carefully, and we need to continue that.
Thank you. This next one will.
Thanks. So yes, home ownership is really the path to generational wealth, and I had to buy my own house on my own. In fact, I've been a renter. I've lived in an apartment most of my life, and it took me a long time. It took me almost 15 years to save up enough for a down payment on a house. It shouldn't take that long, really. And I was not aware of all of some of these options that were available to first-time home buyers. I think number one, we need better education and information to the public. A lot of folks that I speak with are not even aware of these options. Number two, there are existing programs in addition to the Covenant Home. The Habitat for Humanity is another one where you can invest your sweat equity into home ownership as well. That's something that the city of SeaTac supports, and I personally support as well. And in addition to that, it all comes down to how much does it cost to buy a house, and the cost just keeps increasing, right? So in order to get that under control, we need to make permitting a lot more efficient, which is something we did in SeaTac. I would love to do that for the county. It needs to be easier and quicker to build a house so that there aren't houses that are taking forever to build or that get stuck in the permit process. So those are some of my things.
Okay, thank you. Our next question. Our kid community is majority multicultural. How will you ensure that our multicultural community's mental illness, mental health challenges, and those that are differently abled are supported? We start with Mr. Juan.
Oh. Thank you. So I know South King County District 5 is one of the most diverse, probably the most diverse district, but SeaTac and Tacoma specifically is the most diverse city within this district. There are over 200 languages spoken at home in SeaTac, so it is a challenge to provide services when you have to be able to provide translation services as well. So the city of SeaTac has actually undertaken a program or project to make sure that all of the materials are translated into multiple different languages, including the website. And so the language translation access is the most important part so that everyone understands when they can access the information, they can read it in their own language. When it comes to mental health support, we need to be able to make sure that we hire folk who are familiar with the different cultures. For example, in Korean culture, the approach to mental health treatment is very different. And there are cultural differences across all of the cultures. So it's a huge challenge, I understand that, and at the base, we need to be able to provide culturally appropriate treatment. Thank you.
I laughed a little bit about the Korean comment. I'm Korean, my mom's Korean, and so mental health, we don't talk about it in that community. And that's a huge thing we have to change, right? It comes back to bite you later in life, and so it's really critical to make sure that we are getting messaging out, again, from people doing the work and people that look like the people we're trying to serve. So ensuring that we have culturally competent care, both mental, physical, that's another issue that we see at Harborview, people waiting too long to get services. Translations is, having a translation on your website is great, but a lot of people don't use the internet if they don't speak the language. And so making sure that we have printed materials, that we have materials that are provided to in their cultural gathering spaces, in their community centers, or elsewhere is really, really important. We also need to make sure that crisis responders are also reflective of our community, because as we know at Harborview, we see every single person in the community regardless of ability to pay, and most often they are the people that don't look like our King County leadership. So we need to make sure that as we hire crisis responders, mental health treatment providers, substance use treatment providers, that we are hiring them and hiring diverse people to reflect the population that we serve, and that they understand how to provide culturally competent care.
All right, question number 7. What are your plans for supporting the creation of living wage jobs for the people of Kent?
Kent's the biggest part of the district, so I get it. Yeah. So I've been really excited to be endorsed by over 12 labor unions who work a ton, each of them, on workforce development and creating pipelines from high school, college, all of these things into the workforce is critical. We're having a lot of challenges with youth finding jobs because of minimum wage restrictions in other cities, and so when employers are looking at resumes of a 17-year-old trying to get a summer job, or a 32-year-old who's had a number of jobs and knows how to work in the workplace, they tend to pick the older potential candidates. So it's really critical to make sure that we are expanding workforce opportunities for our youth. The labor unions, Lyona Local 242 does a career day, and they did it at Shower Center, and I went to it and it was amazing. They had almost all of the different labor unions there showcasing their different trades, and so it brought in high schools from like 13 different high schools. There were hundreds of kids, including girls, which is really cool to see girls doing practicing masonry skills or building a metal toolbox. You got to practice using an excavator simulation. Those are the kinds of things we need to make sure our kids know about in high school before they graduate and then think, oh, okay, what do I want to do now? I think we need to build the excitement in workforce development, both in the trades, but also in healthcare, as I'm going to continue to plug that. Thanks.
Thank you. So this is a topic that is very near and dear to me, and the reason is because the city of SeaTac, in case you did not know, was the first city in the entire country, in the United States, to pass the higher minimum wage law, $15, and this was back in 2012. And the argument was that the higher minimum wage would enable the people in the city to make more money, make a living wage, and get out of poverty. At the time, SeaTac had the highest poverty rates in all of King County. So today, here we are, 20 plus years later, and where are we? SeaTac still has the highest poverty rate in King County. Why is that? Because I learned most of the folks who enjoy the higher minimum wage, today it's like 20 something, $28, I think. They don't live in the city. They live in some other city. So when I learned that, what I did was I did focus on let's provide job training, workforce training to get people in SeaTac higher paying jobs right out of the gate. So we have funded workforce training programs, multiple, and when anyone in SeaTac wants to go through that, it's paid for 100% by the city. And when they graduate, they become certified after about 6 months or so. They have a $35, $45 an hour job waiting for them that's already available. So I would love to expand the type of program countywide. I think this is the correct approach in order to increase earning for everybody directly by giving them the skill set to get higher paying jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the end of our panel questions. Now we'll go to the audience questions. And we'll start with, who do we start with here? Peter, thank you. Mr. Kwan. Most of our social services are located in the city of Seattle, making them less accessible to residents of South King County. How would you plan to address this disparity?
Question. In fact, in SeaTac, there's very few social services available also. So we have to look at surrounding cities for services. That's not fair. South King County needs better representation, district-wide at the county level in order to make sure that the services are provided in the area where it is needed, and it's needed here. So I will do everything I can to make sure that the services are expanded to include South King County so that people in South King County don't have to travel all the way to Seattle or elsewhere in order to obtain these services. Thank you.
So there's a number of social services that are located in Seattle that we would need to bring here, and I agree that we need to do everything we can to bring them. The challenge is standing up these social services in the city is not always as easy. Bringing down the healthcare providers or the mental health providers. And so one thing that we need to do in the interim as we try to bring dollars and service and programs down here is to make sure that we have better transit to the services now so that folks can readily access those services without having to find a car or drive up to Seattle. The other big social services program that is going to be implemented countywide is the Crisis Care Center. The Crisis Care Centers are, they were approved mental health and behavioral health services that we could benefit from. It needs to be a community engagement issue. We need to make sure that we are engaging with the community before, again, the county places anything here. We need to work with our community members to make sure that we are providing the wraparound supports both for the patients but also for the community members who live nearby. And that means providing the safety and security for folks that are coming and going from those centers. The social services programs in general are extremely diverse, and we need to do a better job of bringing them down to South King County. But again, with those supports, with the community engagement.
Okay. There we go. All right. Click the question. We are looking at our last question. And there's one real good one. Okay. I'm talking my business here. All right, here we go. And Stephanie, we're starting with you. And like I said, this is the last question. What are the public safety and policing challenges facing Ken? And how would you improve those the business and family safety. How would you improve those for businesses and family safety? And what would you do specifically?
So this is an issue that I'm well familiar with, and I think that the most important thing with public safety and policing is to make sure that there is good communication across the board. So there have been challenges in the past with the way that public safety has been implemented, and I think that the City of Kent is working to ensure that there's more communication with the community, that the community is providing feedback, and that the law enforcement is engaging with the community. The other critical component of this, of course, is behavioral health. So co-responder units, and I know that Kent has that program stood up. I think 5 of the cities in the district have co-responder programs, and that is a person who is either a social worker or a nurse or someone trained in behavioral health that will respond with law enforcement for a situation where the person needs services, not an arrest. And that is critical both for the law enforcement so they can focus on the crises that require their attention, but it also gets the people the services that they need faster so they don't have to wait and enter the behavioral health system through the jails. Harborview is the place you go when you are the most complex, both medically and behavioral health wise, and it is so important for us to work downstream and try to get folks services that they need before they end up at Harborview. It's a great place to get care, but it's not ideal. We don't necessarily want to have folks end up at Harborview because that means you're kind of at the worst of your worst. So working with law enforcement, co-responder units, making sure you're getting your culturally competent care and the behavioral health services you need, it's really important for all of those things to work together.
So public safety and law enforcement need to be both equitable and effective, and I believe we can have both. One of the challenges that is facing King County specifically is the actual shortage of police officers. So we need more cops to begin with to be able to handle the workload. There's also several programs that have been successful in CTAC that I would like to see available countywide. The first thing is CTAC actually was one of the early adopters to provide a mental health professional with first responders to de-escalate the situation on site and provide services immediately. And that has been very effective. It's working out extremely well, and the program has been welcomed by police officers as well. With businesses specifically, CTAC has actually created a business workforce where businesses can communicate directly with our police officers, and so that we can understand the challenges from the perspective of the businesses, and we can be proactive in reducing crime, as well as the early involvement with kids. We have police officers in schools, we have the Children's Citizens Academy and other programs that allow direct involvement of youth, and so early involvement is also an opportunity that I think we should be able to provide. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, we said that was the last question. We have a last question. We kind of like the preacher up in here. We can wind up All right. East-west access by metro and sounder transportation is sorely lacking. Light rail services are not accessible to East Hill residents, especially those dependent on public transportation. Who will speak to this serious lack? That's why we made this the last question. Thank you.
Okay, so I have actually been hearing this concern quite a bit in Kent and also in Renton. and also in Normandy Park, and areas where that's very far away from light rail. I've been hearing extra concerns in Kent where metro bus routes, entire routes have been shut down. And when I was in the neighborhood, I saw that. There's a bus stop that's been covered up and closed permanently. This is not acceptable. We need to be able to provide, and this is King County, provide public transportation for the public and not shut these down. The challenge here is Metro is facing a budget shortfall. Sound Transit is facing project delays, which equals more money, right? Which equals potentially higher taxes and all of that stuff that's going to be coming down the pike. We need to be able to plan these out better. One of the issues that I'm very familiar with is fare enforcement. In fact, if you look at King County, the website, they track the fares since the pandemic when nobody was paying until today. It has not even recovered to pre-pandemic levels yet, okay? What that means is able-bodied people who are taking the public transportation are not paying for that because they're not being enforced, right? I'm all in favor of providing discounted rates or free rides for youth or the disabled or seniors, no problem, okay? But the able-bodied folks who use the transportation should pay for that. I understand that that won't cover the entire cost, okay, but that's a start. And we need to get these bus routes back into Kent. That's something that I have seen firsthand, and I'm going to get to the bottom of this when I get in there and make sure that we bring those buses back. Thanks.
So I've also heard this from residents, and so I met with the general manager of Metro, and I asked her, what are we going to do? And she explained that because of the funding shortfalls and COVID, they didn't have enough drivers to keep some of those lines open, and so they had to make adjustments and really prioritize the routes that had more people. So the way that you bring those routes back is by both speaking up and talking to your city, at which they have shared with Metro that they need more transit access on the East Hill. The other thing that, or the other option is to utilize Metro Flex, which is the Uber-like app that allows you to provide that end-to-end support. So if your route ends, 8 blocks or a couple miles away, you can use Metro Flex and they will come pick you up and take you to where you need to go for the same cost as a bus ride. So that is what Metro is utilizing to evaluate where new routes will go. So please use it if you need it, because that's how they're tracking whether people will actually use these routes. And then they will put a bus line in to serve the community where they are seeing Metro Flex utilize it. I'm proud to be endorsed by ATU, the transit workers union that provides these services for transit or for Metro. And safety is another issue, and making sure that our transit workers and our riders are safe on transit is also expensive. So we all need to work together to try and get access back, both transit and otherwise, but really working together and partnering with our cities to get Metro access back to your communities is critical.
Thank you to the candidates. We appreciate it very much. That was the last question.
I just want to say something real quick. I just want to give a special shout out to that young man right there, giving all the great questions and staying present and representing young people here. So, thank you.